Hello and welcome to another episode of a Brothers Creed podcast where we talk about motivation, experiences, and exploring the world around us. We are the Thomas Brothers. I'm Ethan.
And I'm Jared. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic, and it has to do with your mindset. We're going to talk about the differences between having a poverty mindset or a poor mindset versus a wealthy mindset, and how changing the way that you think about money, changing the way you think about how that's handled or just how you run your life can really make a lot of a difference in the direction of your life. And so it's going to be a great topic, and look forward to sharing it with you guys.
All right, let's get into it.
You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket.
We will not go quietly into the night.
They tell me you're a man with true grit.
I am the one who knocks.
Don't ever tell me what I can't do, ever!
That's how winning is done.
To start this off, like Jared said, we're going to be talking about mindset. And I think that mindset is extremely powerful. The power of the mind and the power of thinking and how you perceive something, how you think about something can really direct your actions, definitely. So a poverty mindset is a mindset that people develop over a time based on a strong belief that they never have enough money. This mindset is driven by fear and can cause many different things amongst poor financial decision-making, poor family decisions, poor career decisions, poor criminal decisions. It can cause you to make lots of different decisions in your life. With a mindset driven by fear, there can be no comfort nor commitment nor contentment in your life. So if you're constantly driven by fear in your life, then there can be no, feeling of being settled. There can be no comfort. And I think that fear is, it's a mindset. So just to talk some base numbers, in the United States, the poverty line for a household of 4 individuals that are living in a household, and these are just, I guess, extreme baselines of what the government considers poverty, someone in poverty. So for a household of 4, it's $26,000. And for a household of 6, it is $35,000. So that just kind of gives a baseline. But I think there are people that make $35,000 and are right at that poverty line. And there are people
Household of 4 is $26,000, and a household of 6 is $35,000.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so there's people that, maybe in a household of 6 that are making $30,000 or living below the poverty line, but potentially they have, depending on their mindset, right, and their actions too, but they could be more wealthy potentially than someone who's making double that and spending everything.
Because of the welfare services.
And I think it's that scarcity, and I think we're going to talk about this later, but that scarcity mindset of like you're always in panic that there's never enough, or you're never going to get it, or whatever else. So there are several different types of poverty, and we'll I'm just going to walk through a couple of these. So absolute poverty, this is kind of known as extreme poverty, or let's say some of these like third world countries, right? It involves scarcity on the very basics of food, clean water, health, shelter, education, information. People are susceptible to struggle even with life experiences. A lot of children die from preventable diseases. This is absolute poverty. This is like third, fourth world poverty, if that even exists.
This is like where they're like trying to basically just survive, like their basic human needs: shelter, food, water.
Yep. Number 2 is relative poverty. This is defined more by the social perspective that is a living standard as compared to the population that lives around you. So if you live in New York City and the average income is $80,000 and you're making $50,000, $50,000 is still above the poverty line in the United States, but still it's
you'd be poor. You'd be dirt poor in New York living into that. Yeah,
it's relative poverty. It's you live in poverty relative to the surroundings, your surroundings, and the environment around you.
Everybody that lives in Bill Gates' neighborhood is poor, is dirt poor, relatively.
Yeah. So the next one is situational poverty. This is more of a temporary type of poverty based on an occurrence, maybe an environmental disaster, a job loss, severe health problems. This can be something that can just completely drain you of any wealth that you potentially had just so that you could survive. Is situational poverty.
That's why you have umbrella insurance.
Yep, that's why
protect you against
you need insurance.
Liabilities that.
Yeah, I was doing I was working with a guy, and I bought some things from him that he was selling, and I'm purposely being cryptic here, but I said, why are you selling these things? And he was like, well, my daughter had he goes, my daughter is pretty sick, and we didn't have any health insurance. And he goes, we've got some massive medical bills that we're trying to pay off, and we're just like selling everything left and right. And so it was kind of like, I was like, oh shoot, well, I feel bad.
Taking advantage, yeah.
Yeah, but I was just like, that's situational poverty. I mean, you're in a situation.
This was my grandfather's. Here you go, and you're like, oh,
no, it was nothing like that. So the next one is generational poverty. This is basically handed over from individual to individual or families from one generation to another. It's kind of like, a lot of people talk about generational welfare.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this is how grandma did it, and this is how grandpa did it, and this is how mom does it, and this is how the kids do it, and it's almost bred into their lifestyle. They just live. I don't even want to say lazy, but it's just people are just bred into it's almost nurture versus nature, and it's just more common if you grow up in a certain situation or you grow up always being told one thing. Oh, you can do it this way, you can do it this way, you can get on disability, or you can do this, or you can do that, you can ride the system, then you're just going to you're trained to that your whole life, then that's all you know, and you're going to do it. And then you're going to teach the same thing to your kids, potentially.
Yeah.
The next two are very similar. There's rural poverty, which is basically living in like areas where there's not very many people. This living population is less than 50,000 people. There's not many jobs. There's not really any services. Maybe you're living out in the middle of the country.
This is like the mountains of Appalachia, like West Virginia.
Yeah, you're just living there to just survival, really. I mean, you don't really have good quality education. You live so far away from schools. You don't have transportation to get there. And so it's just kind of rural poverty. Urban poverty is a little bit different. This is more like, I don't know.
You live in the projects.
Yeah, you live in the projects. There's way too many people. You have limited access to health care or education. You got inadequate housing and services. It's dirty. You've got violent and very unhealthy environment for those around you, gangs or whatever else it may be. Extreme overcrowding, and little to no social protection against what's going on. It kind of reminds me of what's that? The baseball
movie with Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it Hardball?
Hardball. Yeah.
Yeah. Hardball.
I love it when you call me Big Papa.
Right.
Yeah.
And he takes I mean, he's a white guy, right? And he's coaching this.
He's actually Asian.
Okay, so he's coaching this
half Asian, half white, I think.
He's coaching this baseball team of these kids that live basically in the projects.
Inner city kids. Yeah.
Inner city kids. I think it's New York or Philly or something like that, but they live in some rough neighborhoods. Remember, he takes one of the kids home, and it's at night, and he's all, I mean, it's like there's fires, and there's people running around and everything. So he takes his kid home and he walks him up to his apartment and he's like, why doesn't anybody have furniture? He's like walking by and he sees the doors open in these apartments. Everybody's sitting on the floor. He goes, why is nobody sitting on furniture? And the kid goes, oh, because you need to sit below the windows. And he goes, why are you sitting below the windows? And the kid goes, bullets. And it was just like,
Yeah. Something crazy. That
it was like, geez, man, it's and I know it's just a dramatization of, but I'm sure that how it's like many times or in many places. And so, I mean, that's kind of that urban poverty. So,
So I think
Go
it's
ahead.
important to say that there's different types of poverty that you talk about, and some of these, we're going to talk about the mindset, a poor mindset, and sometimes this is taught to you by your parents. Sometimes this is just learned over time, and these are ways that can help you break out of that poverty. But it's not the only ways, or it's not the only way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you do need assistance from someone to just give you a chance or to give you help you with a leg up. Now, I'm not, I think that there's a balance of specifically when you talk about the government and what types of services they should provide to people and how much versus the personal responsibility of these people themselves. I mean, that's a whole argument in itself.
Yeah.
But I think that generally you're never going to get anywhere out of poverty if you don't change your mindset. That is a fact.
That's one thing that Dave Ramsey kind of said, that there's 3 types of poverty. He said there's just absolute poverty, which is when we talked about living in a third world country that's just terrible. And I know a lot of people don't like Dave Ramsey, but I like a decent amount of stuff that he says. Another one is poverty that's basically pushed on people, maybe poverty of oppression, and then poverty of making bad financial decisions.
Maybe the push on people like you push it down on your kids, and your parents push it on you, like generational poverty, like you talked about.
Yep, definitely. And it really kind of fit into those ones that I talked about before. And really, like you were saying, Jared, it's definitely, it's that mindset. It's that mindset of, yes, there are certain human and physical needs that people have. You need money to buy food. You need to have shelter. You need to have access to clean water. Like there are certain human rights and needs that people have that need to get satisfied. But do you need a 85-inch $4,000 TV when you can't pay your bills?
Do you need satellite dish?
Do you need satellite? Do you need the newest iPhone 15 or whatever that's out when you can't put food on the table for your kids?
Obama phone, Yeah, exactly.
So that to me is the mindset. Is it, it's going to get given to me? I don't need to worry about my food because the government's going to give it to me, and so I can just spend the money that I do have or that I do earn on things that maybe I don't need.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. So it's all about, that is absolutely correct. And so we're talking about people who are in that mindset. One of the things I've always said is like people who buy lottery tickets. The lottery is a tax on the stupid. Literally, that's why people lobby against doing lotteries. They object to having lotteries in certain areas because statistically, the people who get taken advantage of the most are the poor people who are spending an unproportionate amount of their money on lottery tickets trying to get rich, trying to hit it big.
Yeah.
Because they're stupid and they don't understand the odds. So really, when you bring a lottery into an area, it hurts the poor people.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt the rich people. It hurts the poor people. And you can put it under the guise of like, this is going towards education. Yeah, but you're hurting the poorest people. You're targeting the stupidest, the poorest people to get this money. So when people win that, they're already stupid. They already don't know how to manage their money because they're buying lottery tickets. And guess what? 90% of the time, they end up blowing it all anyway.
That kind of falls into that oppression category, I think. Because you look at you go into a poor area, and what are you going to see on every corner? You're going to see, check into cash,
liquor stores,
check into cash. You're going to say liquor stores. You're going to say, title pawn places. You're going to be seeing all these different types of things where you can go and you can get, early paycheck loans and all this different kind of stuff. Oh yeah, you come in and basically you go into this place. You say, I need $150 right now, and they say, okay, sign over your next paycheck to us, and then whenever you get it, basically we'll take our $150 back plus
$100.
yeah, plus 48% interest.
Oh yeah.
And these people are like, and that is preying on the basically the poor in that situation, because they know they need it. Maybe they do need $100 right now. Maybe they have an emergency, or maybe they just, I don't know, maybe they don't understand that you would not catch a rich person would eat dirt before they would go do
a title loan
company and say,
especially when they're like, oh, actually, I know a guy who started a title loan company, and he's like, yeah, I'm charging. He's like, the rates that I charge was like 100 to 200% APR.
Yeah.
He's like, some of the other ones that are out there charge 300 to 400%. He's like, so I'm way below like what these other guys are charging. It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's kind of sad, but really it's almost preying on the poor mentality, right?
Or people who don't know any better.
Yeah,
they're uninformed.
Whether it's maybe it's a lack of education, and maybe it's a lack of understanding. And I don't think it's education as far as like school education. I think it's almost parental education. Oh,
financial. They don't teach you that in school. They don't teach you that. What are they going to teach you in school? Don't go to freaking title loan companies.
Yeah,
they're not going to teach you. Yeah, it's just, especially in college. You're not going to learn in high school. A lot of these people who are impoverished didn't go to college. That's part of the reason why they are impoverished.
Yeah. So really, one of the last things I wanted to say on just that poor mentality is there's two words right there, and this is another thing that Dave Ramsey says. He says there's poor and there's broke. Right? Poor is a mentality. Poor is a state of mind. Being broke is just I'm passing through type situation. And this is funny. He says this a lot of times, but he goes, I've been so broke that I couldn't even pay attention. Right?
He's a jokester, man.
Yeah, it's just like, I've been so broke I couldn't even pay attention. And so it's different. Broke is not having money. Poverty is a mindset. Poverty is this. I'm here now. So these are 5 signs that you have a poverty mindset. And you know what?
You have all these.
Like, dang. I was writing these down. I was like,
dang it.
I almost erased every single one. I'm not going to talk about that. Right? So, okay. So not all of these. And I think there's a time and place that we have all been susceptible to every single one of these things.
Yeah.
But number 1 is lack of ambition. You lack ambition. I wouldn't say lack ambition, but you lack ambition. Number 2 is you are pessimistic and self-pitying. This is terrible. I'm never going to get anywhere. The man's keeping me down. Blah, 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 blah. Just miserable to be around. Pessimistic and self-pitying.
The 1%'s keeping me down.
Yeah.
Or whatever, X group of people are keeping me down,
Yep. Number 3 is you are a deeply jealous person. Just anyone else's success just makes you fuming angry.
Mm-hmm.
They can't. Why do they have success and I don't have success? I've fallen into that before.
We talked about that on the podcast.
We have talked about that. And so you are a deeply jealous person. You can't celebrate someone else's successes.
Yeah.
Number 4 of 5. This number 4 is you make decisions based on fear. Maybe that, I might not. I'm gonna buy this now because I might not be able to buy it later. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get this because it might not be there later. So make decisions based on fear. And then the last one is you focus on what you do not have, not on what you do have. My 3-bedroom or my 2-bedroom house is I wish I had an 8-bedroom house.
I wish I had heated floors in my bathroom.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, that you know what? Heated floors in the bathroom would be nice. My wife would love that. But you know what? That's a good goal.
My feet get sweaty very easily.
Yeah, it's like that's a good goal, but at the same point, it's like, we need to appreciate what we currently have, and it is not wrong to want more.
Yeah,
It is not wrong to be, the first one is you lack ambition. It is not wrong to be ambitious and to desire more for your family. Yeah, I would like, I would like to have 6 cars and then to could choose which car I want to drive today. That would be awesome. But I am extremely lucky that I have a car that I can drive that is reliable and that works and gets me from A to B. And so that, focusing on what you don't have as compared to what you do have is that poverty mindset.
Absolutely. So I have a list here, and I'm going to talk about the rich mindset in here, and I'm going to kind of run through a list of examples how the rich contrast to the poor. Or when I say rich, I'm meaning wealthy or rich, those who have that different mindset. So rich or wealthy people, they make money work for them. Everybody has the same amount of time within a day. So really what the wealthy are trying to do is they're trying to maximize that amount of time by hiring employees or getting some type of passive income to where they're not having to trade their hours, their time for money. So, I mean, if you think, what's the biggest job in the world that pays the most hourly? I mean, you think about maybe an underwater welder, he's going to make a lot of money per hour. Or even like a doctor. They're very specialized. He could earn a lot of money per hour, but that doesn't compare to doctors who own practices, who own methodologies or treatment styles, and they expand themselves through employees, and that is what the wealthy do. All this is if you ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, it kind of talks about a lot of these principles. Very good. The next one is rich people invest their money and poor people spend their money. The risk, one of the quotes that I found that I write, says, poor mindset immediately sees, let me read this. It says, rich mindset seeks to spend their time, resources, and energy on work that continues to pay off long after the effort has been invested. Rich mindset is all about getting the flywheel spinning or building momentum, creating systems that continue to generate value on their own. Whereas a poor mindset immediately sees a surplus as an opportunity for consumption. Ooh, you made X more dollars a month. Let's go buy this, or let's go buy this. That's that poor mindset.
Let's go get the newest iPhone, like we said.
Yeah, and that can be very tempting. Like every single one of my neighbors has gotten a pool over COVID. It seems like at least 5 of them have it, and it's like, I want a pool now. So it can be tempting. So the next one here is rich people continually learn. Take at least 1 hour a day. We talked about that in one of our earlier episodes about building that mastery. Learn to improve yourself over time. Some statistics here. 24.5% of Americans haven't read a book in the past 2 years, and about 55% of Americans haven't read a book in the past year. That's shocking. So it's not going to take much to get yourself ahead of half the people in the U.S. No wonder the wealth is concentrated into the top 10% or top 1%. Because 50% of the people are just watching freaking Netflix, not doing squat. If you think about it, if you go a little bit further down the rabbit hole, maybe that's the whole purpose. The rich and wealthy are trying to get the rest of us distracted with video games, with Netflix, with pornography, or drinking, or all these different things, so that all of our time and energies are just spent spinning and spinning and spinning, and it's not on anything productive, so that they can reap the benefits. So that's a little bit of a down the rabbit hole with Jared Thomas. The next one,
you'll never come back.
Yeah, exactly. Rich know the road to being wealthy is not easy, so it's fraught with difficulties. You have to overcome problems. Poor people let problems get them down, and that goes back to what we talked about in an earlier episode about having your why be the most critical thing. And if your why of why you're doing things is so important to you, then you're easily able to overcome problems and issues that may come along. But if your motivation is that, if your why is kind of a lower scale, if your why is just to not be embarrassed or just to look cool in front of your friends, if any problem comes up, or if your emotions turn one day, then you're going to just give up that thing very easily. And so poor-minded people let emotions drag them down. And also other poor-minded people. You think about have you ever heard the analogy of the bucket of crabs? where if you have a bucket of crabs,
yeah.
if one tries to climb out, the others will pull it down.
Yeah, they'll grab it and.
So if you're in a community or like that, or you have people like that around you, that's what you're going to be. And so that's so important. Rich people are future oriented, delayed gratification.
Yep.
Buy stocks when they're low. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy this stock when it's low. I'm going to sacrifice today so that I can live better tomorrow. That delayed gratification. That's something I'm trying to teach my boys, is about delayed gratification versus immediate gratification. It's so important.
One thing I'll add in there that I think is huge on that too is that I think a rich or wealthy mindset is one of the things you can do to build that is to do gratitude exercises, to have an attitude of gratitude in everything that you do. Be appreciative of where you are. Be thankful for those around you. Be even if it's hard to find something that makes you grateful, find those things.
Yep. The next one is they have clear goals and targets. We talked about that many times. If you have a step-by-step guide of where you want to get to, it's a lot easier to get to those goals. The poor have nothing to look forward to. They have no action plan. They have no goal. We talked about that many times, where you're just a ship just going in the ocean without any rudder. You're just no direction, no compass. You're just going. And that's not going to get you anywhere. You got to have goals. The wealthy venture outside of their comfort zone. That is where growth occurs, is outside of your comfort zone. Poor people stay within their comfort zone, and they just don't venture out. They don't meet new people. They don't go learn new things. They don't get uncomfortable to learn new things. And so that is an important thing. Also, we talk about taking risks. The wealthy take calculated risks and say, I'm going to calculate this risk, and I'm going to put some money towards this. And yes, there is a chance that I could lose this money, but it's a calculated risk, and I want to make that. Whereas the poor are like super cautious. I can't lose this money.
Put it under the mattress.
I'm fearful, so I'm going to hoard it. I'm going to put it in my savings account, and then inflation is going to eat it away.
Yeah.
The next one here is I said this earlier, kind of my conspiracy theory. The wealthy are innovators rather than consumers. Challenge yourself to create value to others. And that's kind of, I think, part of the reason why we started this podcast. I wanted to be a creator of something, a creator of content, a creator of something, to build something, put something out there into the world, and not just be a consumer. Because, I consume other podcasts and I listen to things, but to also be putting things out there, I think that is a wealthy mindset.
I completely agree.
Let's see. Having a good reputation and valuing reputation. Someone who's poor, they may not value their reputation, so they'll just maybe steal from you, and they don't value their personal brand that they're building. And also valuing your time. Don't idle away your time doing non-productive things. One of the last kind of things here is a poor mindset is, I can't afford it, or we can't afford that. Whereas a rich mindset is, how can we afford that? It's like, if I wanted to go buy a pool right now and put a pool in my backyard, I could buy that. But it's like, well, I would have to maneuver. What extra jobs would I have to do? What lengths would I have to go to? I'm just like, I know that I can achieve things. It's just, am I willing to put in the amount of work? And is that pool going to be worth it to me? Is getting a pool going to be worth cashing out a lot of the money that I have in the stock market to put into a pool that's not going to appreciate in value, really? That's going to be a constant maintenance thing. I'm going to have to be.
Is it worth the investment?
We're going to have to be checking chlorine levels every freaking day. It's just like, I don't know if I want all that mess. So that's some of the differences there between the poor and then the wealthy mindset.
Yeah. I have a story that kind of goes along with some of those things. So I was, when I was in college, I did let's just call it summer sales, right? So I did door-to-door, door-knocking summer sales. I was selling security systems and home automation systems for this company. And I was in California for the majority of the time, but we were in Northern California, and we were up in Crescent City, which is really close to the border in Northern California. And basically what the whole premise was is they would drop us off in a neighborhood, And then we would go and knock all the doors in the neighborhood, and we would sell them security systems and home automation systems that they could connect to their phones and control their lights and their doors and their yada, yada, yada. So I was in this one neighborhood, and it was it was a to-do neighborhood. And these lots, they were really big lots. They were like 2-acre lots. I mean, really big is relative, but for a neighborhood, 2-acre lots are pretty big. And just nice brick houses, and I had a couple sales in that neighborhood. There were definitely people that were interested. And so I had just had a sale, and I was talking with the guy, and we were just sitting there chatting a little bit. And I go, what about that house over there? There was a house over in the corner that it was a huge house, and it sat on like maybe 5-acre corner lot. And I was like, what about that house? What's going on with that house over there? And I was like, do you think they would be interested? And in order to qualify for the security system and like the monthly payment or whatever, you had to have a decent credit, right? Unless you just prepaid everything, which was like thousands and thousands of dollars, which nobody ever did. But in order to qualify, you had to have decent credit. And I said, well, what about that guy over there? Do you think they'd be interested in a security system? And the guy was like, oh. He's like, you don't want to talk to them. And I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, and I don't want to slander anybody, but he goes, he said, that family, he said, there's a couple families that actually live there. And he said, there's like the last remaining 2 or 3 families of this Native American population. And
they used to live on that land or something like that, or what?
No, so basically I can't even remember the name of the nation, right, or the tribe that they belong to, but there's only like, they used to own land in the area or whatever, and basically they had an agreement with the government because the government, took their land, or took the land that they were on, and they were paying the government, it was
paying them?
A mixture of they were paying the government was paying them, and they had a casino that also gave them like dividends or profits or whatever. But each member of the tribe received like $30,000 a month.
Holy moly! Why wouldn't you want to talk to them?
Every single member of the tribe received $30,000 a month, and the guy said that, for years, ever since for the past, I don't know,
however long,
100 years or whatever, they've been receiving this amount of money. Not the same as $30,000, but it's grown with inflation and stuff like that. But basically, he said they go out, and he said they probably get 2 or 3 cars repoed every month. He was like, they spend so much money that that they don't even care like what happens. I mean, they go out and they'll just put a down payment on something, and he said they'll go buy a Lamborghini. They'll put a down payment on a Lamborghini, and they'll get it, they'll bring it home, and they'll drive it through the field, and then they'll just leave it out, and they'll just leave the doors, leave the doors open, leave the cars on it whenever they're done with it, or whenever they pop all the tires, and they'll just leave it out there, and then just go back home, and they'll just walk away from it. And then he said, and then a couple weeks later, they'd have, somebody would come and repo the Lamborghini, or they would buy, all these kinds of, so many toys and everything else. He said they'd build ramps for these razors and these, $100,000 machines and stuff like that. He's like, and then they just jump them and trash them and then just leave them there.
Jeez, man.
And he's like, they just have like a graveyard of stuff that they just spend this money like crazy and then have just complete disregard for whatever. And why? I was like, why do they do that? I was like, how is it even possible? He goes, because they know for a fact that next month they're going to get another check for $30,000. And they're just going to do the same thing over and over and over again. And it was just crazy. For me, I couldn't understand that mentality. And the whole thing was, he was saying, I actually went over there and I knocked on the door. Nobody answered. There was people home. Nobody answered. The guy said that they were just like terrible neighbors. He said they didn't care about anybody. They were just like just trash, just like leave trash everywhere. And I mean, he just said, not because of who they were, he just said, this. But I'm not saying because they were Native Americans, they were trashy or whatever, but I'm just saying the specific people that lived in that house, there was no, I don't know, they was just like so comfortable that it was just like their mindset was almost nothing ever even matters. And it was almost like they had a poor mindset in wealth. Yeah. And just completely, like all those things you talked about, how, making money work for you and creating something, whatever else, it was the complete opposite of that.
How wealthy could they have been? How wealthy could they be if they had to spend their money wisely?
Yeah. Yeah, it was just instead of create and grow and progress, it was consume, accomplish, do, it was just like trash, everything else. And it was just really weird to kind of see that. I had never really seen that kind of carelessness with money before.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. One of the things I want to talk about here is we talk about when you talk about this type of rich versus poor mindset, I think it's important to talk about this scarcity versus abundance mindset. And they're kind of they're very correlated, I think, with poor versus a wealthy mindset. So first I want to talk about the scarcity. Well, I'll talk about both of them. First is a scarcity mindset. So the worldview is that everything that's needed for the future's survival and progress is getting scarcer or running out. Nothing positive is getting bigger or better. So the number one thing one example would be like a zero sum. This would be like there's only so much of everything available in the world for everybody. If someone does well, it must be at the expense of everyone else who's doing poorly. So that versus on a scarcity mindset versus someone who has an abundance mindset, their worldview would be, for example, everything important is getting bigger and better as a result of capabilities that make things faster, easier, cheaper. So whereas a scarcity person would think zero sum, other people would think an exponential. So tools, systems, and networks create new areas of personal and general expansion in which the factors of growth continually multiply each other. So think about zero sum and people. This is like almost like a victim mentality. It's like, well, if you're successful, that's taken away from me. And so I've been victim. I've had that mentality sometimes, especially around, like in some of the tech IT field, like data science, IT fields. A lot of the jobs get outsourced. And sometimes I have felt like the zero sum. I've had that zero sum mindset. It's like, well, either the job goes to me or the job goes overseas. And so changing that to be an exponential, like why can't it be overseas and here, and why can't we both just flourish? That's a new mindset that I need to adopt.
I've felt that way before and I think we talked about this before, but like professional athletes.
Yeah.
It's like, man, this kid just coming out of college, signed a $15 million contract with this NBA team because he's 7 feet tall. It's just like, man, that just really grinds my gears. It's just like that, that kind of, he's taken away from me. But, I mean, really, he's not.
Yeah.
I mean, his salary does not affect me one way or another. I mean, he could go broke or he could be worth billions, and it wouldn't change me.
Yeah.
But I'm still like, no, maybe it goes back to that jealousy thing.
Yeah.
But
I was listening to a podcast on the way up to your house this evening, and I was listening to the guy, and he said that in the year 2020, basically, there was like the number of podcasts out there was like 600,000 podcasts worldwide, and that increased by 100,000 in 2020. Ours is included in that statistic.
Really?
And he's like, that doesn't necessarily make me mad. And I liked his mindset. He said, that doesn't make me mad because the more people that listen to podcasts, that means that there's 7 billion people on the earth. That's just the more exposure that mine might get.
More potential for them to stumble upon our podcast.
Yeah, so I like that mindset. Instead of saying like, oh man, like there's more people listening to creating their own podcast, that means less people are going to be listening to mine because there's so many other options. No, his was like, the popularity of podcasts is growing so much that more people are going to be paying attention, and more people can come listen.
I like
to
that.
more.
Very,
I
very
like that.
true.
So another example here of a scarcity mindset is depletion, where all the natural resources that are that support life on the planet are being depleted, and there is no way they can be replaced. Shortages are increasing everywhere. I mean, talk about right now. There's a lumber shortage. There's a housing shortage. There's a shortage of masks. There's a shortage of vaccine. People are crying this every single day.
Yeah.
Or as opposed to the other abundance mindset, which is ingenuity. There are increasing opportunities for more individuals to create new practical solutions and breakthroughs that become immediately useful for many others. So very different. The last one here I'll share is that a scarcity mindset. This kind of goes down to the victim mentality. Kind of maybe what you were talking about too, about this teenage kid making millions of bucks. Also, did you hear that the NCAA now they'll let high school basketball players earn money?
Whereas high school or college?
College.
Yeah.
College. Previously, they couldn't earn any money.
Yeah. Well, it all went to the university.
Yeah, or the NCAA for video game endorsements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But now they can actually make money. So they're all trying to figure out how that's going to work. So very interesting.
Hmm.
So this one is unfairness. So people think that, it's unfair. So resources and capabilities and opportunities are unfairly distributed among the global population. The 1%. Radical change is needed to redistribute everything on a fairer basis. Where have you heard that? Several politicians have talked about redistribution of wealth.
Yeah.
So that is opposed to the abundance mindset where you have opportunity. More and more individuals have the ability to combine their capabilities with others in ways that continually make their future bigger than their pasts. There has never been I think that with the advent of the internet and with all that is available to us today, especially in America, I can't speak for other countries because I don't know quite what their situation is, but there's never been a better opportunity to start a business or for you to get that things going. But I would also say that there has never been more distractions, like we talked about earlier, that would distract you and keep you idle from seeking after your goals. There's lots of shows out there on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and Peacock and Apple TV and all these things that are endlessly coming out that can just keep you distracted forever. So
I completely agree with that opportunity. And that's one of the things that kind of, for me, when we're talking about that poor mentality, is how do you get out of that? How do you break that trend? Was education. And in today's day and age, I mean, I could pull up 50 different financial literacy YouTube channels that have great information. And if you don't have
free information,
and if you don't have, access to a computer at home or whatever else, then you go to the library.
Go to the library, yeah.
The library. And you can watch it at the library. Or, in this day and age, everybody's got a cell phone, and go to McDonald's and sit at McDonald's, use their free Wi-Fi and watch YouTube videos and figure it out. Take notes, study, learn. There's so much stuff out there to not use your situation as an excuse anymore.
Yeah, totally. I think though that sometimes, like you and I, for example, we research all these topics. We talk about these things. We research all this stuff. But yet in all this stuff, we still say, heck, if the list you read off, you're like, oh, geez, I think I'm actually guilty of all of this.
Yeah.
And so I would say that I'm highly educated. I have a master's degree. You have a bachelor's degree. You're also very much educated. You have a great job. We are both very educated people, and yet we still, in some ways, have some of these mindsets. I talked about earlier how I have that zero-sum mindset sometimes. Yeah. And I think that this is, you can research and read and get educated all you want, but you've got to make a conscious effort to have the right mindset, or it just is not going to work for you. And so education is important, but also practical application is important as well. Because no matter what level you're at, you could always fall into this. Even if you're making $30,000 a month, you could have, this poverty mindset absolutely Or even if you were highly educated, you could have a poverty mindset. I guess one thing I heard once somewhere was like, if education correlated to the amount of money that you're going to make, how come all the PhDs aren't making, unbelievable billions of dollars,
Yeah, every PhD should be making
all the money, yeah. So this episode's been really good. I've loved going through all these examples. Hopefully you guys have been able to gather some good insights here. Let's talk about our quotes. So we each read a quote. My quote is, "Becoming wealthy starts with your mindset. Without the proper mental direction, you will sabotage yourself."
Yeah. That direction is important.
All starts in your mind, yep.
Mine says, though your situation might seem hopeless, do not lose hope in yourself. Educate yourself and become better. So,
yeah, very good. Very good.
I think both of those are kind of optimistically looking at you. You are the controller of your own path.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sometimes people are given certain hurdles that they must overcome that are seemingly not their fault. It's not their fault they were born into a certain situation. It's not their fault they were born into a certain country, or it's not their fault that they were born with a disability, or it's not their fault that completely understand that. But stay optimistic, stay hopeful, and be confident in who you are and what your potential is.
Yeah, I'm actually going to do a kind of a shout out at this point, or just a kind of a call to action. I've been looking at kind of some of the statistics for our podcast, and we've got some people that are listening to our podcast from Zimbabwe, from Iraq, from countries in Africa that I've never even considered that anyone would ever be listening to our podcast. So if you are from one of these places that is outside the United States, that is, if you're from Russia or some,
Argentina.
Yeah, I mean,
not that Argentina is a third world country, but I'm just saying it's different from where we are and what we're used to.
You might have a different perspective on this, or you might have a story about how you broke out of this poverty mindset, or maybe you just have some interesting experiences that are different from what our experiences are. If that is the case, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear you. We'd love to have you on the podcast and maybe talk about some of your life experiences living outside. We've interviewed a couple people from outside. We've interviewed Saltwater Sean from our
Canada,
Canadian border, our Canadian
northern neighbor.
We've interviewed Cody he was in Kyrgyzstan.
Kyrgyzstan, yeah.
And then I think
he's American in Kyrgyzstan, but still he's lived there for many years.
Yeah, we interviewed the virtuous man with Jamie. He was from Ireland, but he lives in the U.S. now.
Yeah.
But we haven't interviewed very many people outside the United States, so that might be cool. So you can reach out to us on Instagram at a.brothers.creed. If you don't have Instagram in your country, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but you can reach out to us by email at abrotherscreed at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'd love to hear from you. If you have an interesting story to tell, or you just have some interesting experiences from your country that you might think that would be interesting for our audience to hear, reach out to us. We'd love to talk about that and to have you on. So thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate you listening to our podcast, and we really appreciate all the support that we've been getting and just seeing, the amount of people that listen to the podcast and seeing that number. And it's not just a number to us. We really do appreciate how many people listen and how many people truly week to week download our episodes and listen.
I wish we could get like a list of names of everyone who listens to the podcast. Like every listen is tied to a name. It's not, but
so we could send you a thank you note, not
so
we could make sure you're listening. So we could send you a thank you and say, hey, you know what? Thank you for listening to that podcast.
Exactly.
So thank you guys again, and let's go out and build that creed together.
All right, let's do it.